Okay, so like I said before, anyone who's watching the video now, we had a big stuff up. So had a bit of a pause, had to change SD cards. So I'm just getting straight into the intro. Here we go. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Dr. Jim McDannald, and he is based in Montreal, Canada. He was trained in the US. He's worked in both countries, and he's had a shift in careers, which is really interesting. He's moved into the digital world, and it sort of started at the Rio 2000 Olympics with the Canadian Olympic track and field team and fitness technology company Polar. So, Jim, welcome to the show. And this is going to be very, very interesting. I love hearing people's career shifts. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really looking forward to talking to you today, Tyson.
So it's so you practiced podiatry. What I think you said about 15 years, was it?
Yeah. So I graduated residency in 2003, and then practiced in 2006 residency, and then practiced in Eugene, Oregon for about 5 years before moving to Canada.
So what took you to Montreal?
Yeah. So I met a wonderful young woman with a French accent, and at the same time, while I enjoyed private practice, I had kind of got into some technology side projects and reconnected with building websites and things like that. And I kind of decided at that point in time that it was when I moved to Canada, it was a good time to kind of gradually shift those careers. And I did do a little bit of practice here in Montreal for 2 or 3 years before it was a very gradual transition. It wasn't just snap your fingers and overnight things change.
So now you've moved pretty much, you're not practicing as a podiatrist. You've moved totally into that whole digital advertising for other podiatrists, and your business is called Podiatry Growth.
Yeah, that's correct. I kind of take care of the online presence for private practice podiatrists, mostly in the U.S. I'm open to working with my colleagues in Australia and Canada. But right now, I went to school in the U.S. I trained in the U.S. I am American and Canadian, so it's mostly U.S. based. But I kind of provide a service for podiatrists there in private practice.
So what was the beginning part? Obviously you wanted to be a podiatrist.
Right.
Which is why you went through all the training and the pain that all the the American podiatrists, when they do the training, the residency. So you've gone through all that. Then you said you started doing a little bit of websites and started doing your own advertising. What was it that made you do the shift to think, I need to help other podiatrists do this?
Yeah. So what happened was, I was out on the West Coast, and if you're familiar with the sport of like athletics and track and field, as we call it in the U.S., that Eugene, Oregon, is basically has been the host of the U.S. athletics and track and field Olympic trials for the last 3 or 4 kind of Olympic cycles. So I've been a big runner my entire life. I moved to kind of the capital of running in America, and really got into that side of it. But I kind of got to the point where I didn't really enjoy seeing the kind of the injured side of the sport. I wanted to try to do something, obviously providing healthcare is a positive thing, but I really got into the high performance aspect of things and started dabbling in helping develop iPhone applications. And you have to basically find ways to market those iPhone applications. And I got back into writing and building websites for this kind of what I called Track Geek application. And that's kind of where it started off. And while I liked practice, I could tell that my kind of combination of my technology skills and my podiatry knowledge at some point could maybe be beneficial. And when I moved to Canada and people saw that I started to do communications and marketing roles, like you mentioned, at the Canadian track and field team, and then also with Polar, kind of the GPS and heart rate monitor company, I had colleagues reach out to me who are podiatrists asking, what's going on with digital marketing? I'm with a large agency that doesn't understand podiatry. They have 7 or 8 different people working on my account. I don't know what they're doing. Spending $4,000 to $5,000 a month and not seeing return on investment. Is this a real thing? And can you help me?
So they approached you. It wasn't you reaching out to everybody else saying, look at me, I'm an expert. They came to you.
Well, initially I was working at this, Polar heart rate monitor and GPS watch company. So I was getting all these inquiries from some of my friends. And then once they shut down their headquarters here in Canada, I thought, well, I've got this podiatry network of people. I have this skill set. I know that it works. It's a matter of just kind of combining those two things together. And that's how I created Podiatry Growth. And that's kind of what I've been doing the last year and a half.
So that'd be podiatrygrowth.com?
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's easy for people to find you. So when I mentioned this before I pressed record, I said, yeah, there's a lot of podiatrists I know who will work with a digital company, and they're spending $2, $3, $5,000 a month, depending on the size of their practice. And when you ask them, so what are they actually doing for you? Oh, they're doing my SEO and digital ads. I go, yeah, but do they sit down with you and they show you the results and how they're tweaking certain things to get better results, and how they tweak something else and may not have got the same result, and discuss with you the direction that your business is going? And most of them are so in the dark, they have no idea. They hand over a couple of grand, they cross their fingers, and because they've still got patients coming in. And somebody recently said to me, sometimes if you're dealing with a company, they're actually learning about podiatry on your coin.
Yeah, it happens that way sometimes, right? Like, there's a kind of there's obviously this kind of pressure to kind of go digital or do things online, right? But if you don't have a plan and a total understanding of kind of which forms of digital marketing, actually give you a return on investment, that's where some podiatrists get into troubles. They just kind of feel like they need to kind of go with the flow. And that's just something that everybody does, but you need to be, you have to measure it. You have to know what's going on. You have to have a baseline of knowledge, so it's not a complete blind spot.
Yeah, I remember talking to a podiatrist once, and they said, yeah, I don't know if I'm getting much response from my digital ads. And then when they told me the type of patients that they had, I went, do your patients even, are they in on the online world? And they went,
It's true.
well, I normally just treat, like elderly patients and all. I said, so you're spending all this money, but they're not even looking at those platforms. And they went, oh, I never thought about that.
And I
So
think you bring up a
they would
very
be
good
better
point
to,
there.
they'd be
You
better to
bring
stay offline.
Yeah, well, you bring up a very good point there. It's right. Like it's not only just about like doing all these different online platforms, but it's first doing kind of an introspective look at who you are, what type of practice you want to have, who are you treating, like what kind of practice kind of brings you financial, rewards, but also brings you kind of professional rewards. And then
Yeah.
once you know what that is, then you can reach out and do some of these different things. Maybe it's offline marketing, like you're talking about. Maybe it's online, but you have to kind of know yourself before you jump into things.
Yeah. I jokingly say to people sometimes, what areas of podiatry do you love doing? And they might say running, for example. I go, okay, if I went to your website and I went online and I searched you, if treating runners was illegal and you could be arrested for it, could I find enough evidence to convict you? And it's the amount of times that you'll search everything, you'll find maybe one small blog article that mentions running, and everything else on their website is talking about nail surgery, treating warts, children's foot problems. And I go, where's all, you said that you love running. I
Right.
can't find it. I said, in fact, if it was illegal, you would get off scot-free.
You'd be surprised. I mean, like you said, like, it's amazing how some pictures of podiatrists treating their kind of ideal patient, whether that's an athlete or treating a diabetic foot infection, or just having that information on their website. You see a lot of web pages and a lot of websites these days that almost look like, carbon copies of the one just down the road or the one that's
Yeah.
2 towns over. And it's basically some of these companies are focusing on volume of podiatrists and not quality of the kind of work they're doing. So yeah, it's a matter of just positioning yourself as an expert in a very specific area. And you can take on other things, right? If you're the running podiatrist, but an ingrown toenail comes your way, you can still treat it, but you need to kind of position yourself kind of in your market about this is what you want to do most of. So you have to put that out there in photos and the content on your website, the content on other places on the internet. It has to kind of ring true to that.
Yeah. And I've seen podiatrists where they'll say, oh, no, I don't want to do any more general patients. I don't like general podiatry. I want to get into sports, biomechanics. I want to do more nail surgery. And you go to the website and the first thing it says at the top is general foot care. It's the first thing people see. And then the photographs will have them in the clinic, maybe digging out ingrown toenail or clipping someone's toenails, and going, but you said that's not what you want to do. But your
Right.
whole website and all your marketing screams that. And even when you're doing an online ad, first thing at top, general podiatry. Okay. And that's, I think people get scared sometimes when they think if they niche down and they focus on an area they really love doing and they're good at and they're passionate about, that other people won't come and see them. The general patients will still come and see you.
Yeah. I think you talked to a guy from Pod Chat Live about that thing. Like he kind of positioned himself as the running doctor there. And
Ian
like that was
Griffiths.
one of
Yeah.
his scary things.
Yeah. That was Ian Griffiths.
Yeah.
But a lot of the podiatrists I know that are really successful in the profession, who have got great careers, and having a great career and having a great business doesn't necessarily mean you have to be making millions of dollars. It just means that they wake up each day excited about going to work. It's
Exactly.
not, and the money, to me, the money follows the passion. So if you're passionate about a particular area, the money will come. Don't worry about the money. It'll just follow you. But all those podiatrists that just knew what they liked doing and then put their time and attention into that area, just they seem to reap the rewards. And like I said, they will still treat a general patient if they come in. That's if their clinic is set up that way.
And it's one of those things too, right? Like even I went to school in like the late 2000, the late 1990s and the early 2000s, and at that point in time, Google and Facebook and all these things we didn't get taught that in our practice management classes. So it's not like it's a matter of just like you continually learn about podiatry and surgery and things like that. You have to be continually learning about being a business owner and marketing things so you don't get left behind.
Yeah, and that's where sometimes when it comes to the whole digital world, you need to talk to someone who knows what they're doing. And I think that's great that you having that podiatry background and being in, yeah, you've been in practice, you know what they need. You're not going to a company that is going, oh, podiatry, never had a podiatrist before. This should be interesting. I've mentioned this multiple times on the podcast. I was at a breakfast coffee meeting. So if you've heard the story before, you're going to hear it again. And I'm there, and I've turned up in my car. I've gone to this local business meeting. Anyway, this young dude turns up on a skateboard, as you do at a business meeting. And yeah, he's got straggly hair and he's looking pretty cool with his board shorts and thongs. So I said to him, oh, by the way, what do you do? Oh, I do online marketing, digital marketing for people. I went, okay, so I'm chatting away. And then he leans in, no one's around. He goes, but I really don't know what I'm doing. I just knew that this was an area to get into. And I've got a couple of clients now and I'm learning as I go. And I wanted to thump him.
Yeah.
I just went, that is everything. It's sort of like I equate it to business coaching. There's so many people out there that just because they've had a business think they can do business coaching. And it is a completely different beast. Just because there's people doing digital marketing doesn't mean you should be doing digital marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
And people think it's just going to be easy. They'll just take money from people, put some ads up there, and that's not always the case.
Nope.
There's some skill involved.
Yeah, for sure. It takes a lot of time to develop those skills and make sure that you're providing like a real return on investment for your clients.
So you said, like, when you went through, Google wasn't very big. When I went through, we didn't even have the internet. So that's how, yeah, but we weren't as far as scraping into carving letters into slate or anything like that.
Just
But
carrier pigeons, was it?
yeah, carrier pigeons. I remember someone saying to me, when you used to, it was a new graduate a few years back. They said, when you used to email your assignments off to your lecturers. And I went, no, actually what we had to do, we had to actually print them out on hard. We had to walk in there and actually put it in a tray on their desk and go, and we had to type things in this thing called a typewriter, which is where liquid paper came in very, very handy. So yeah, this whole new world of the internet and digital marketing, was not around, but I've always had an interest in it. So I became passionate in that part of
Sure.
marketing in that as well. But I don't do that because I'm not an expert in that area. That's why I got you on here to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I asked you for a couple of talking points, one of the things you said was the 5 elements of an online presence. What are those 5 elements?
Yeah, so those elements are number one. So I made these elements because technology is always changing, but there's certain kind of foundational principles
Yeah.
that whether it be online or offline marketing or anything that you need to have in order to kind of thrive. So one is basically like a foundation. So you need somewhere, for a long time, the physical clinic was the only foundation of a practice. You had to call into the clinic, you had to go stop by and see the doctor there. But now the website has kind of become a form of an online foundation. And then also because Google is getting so big, the kind of Google My Business profile is almost like a mini website or a mini foundation that you don't have total control over. But the nice thing about your website is you can craft it to be any way you want. You own it. It's not like you're renting land on Facebook or some other people's platform. So that foundational element is kind of number one.
Yeah. Ask Donald Trump how does he own social media or not? And I've seen people where they've built their whole business, or not in podiatry, but other businesses. They decided not to have a website, have built their whole business on Facebook, and all of a sudden, for no particular reason, got shut down. And even though they eventually got put back on it again, but that 2 or 3 week period cost them so much in their business. And I think that's a really good point. A friend of mine, Nikki Jerd, that anyone that's been listening to the podcast has heard me mention Nikki before, but she always says your website is like your mothership.
Yeah.
And everything you do, you're trying to drive people to your website and you own the content on your website, whereas all those other social media platforms, like you said, you're just renting the space.
Yeah, the website's really that central hub, like you said, like everything should point towards it. And like you mentioned with Facebook there, there's a point in time when Facebook first came out where 100% of your posts and all that stuff would go directly to your followers or your fans. But now we're at a point where organic, reaches maybe 2 or 3% of your kind of followers and fans. So you just have to have a direct connection and control over your foundation.
Well, perfect example. I did a webinar recently, 2021, Digital Trends for Podiatrists, with my friend Nikki Jerd. And I posted something about that in my Facebook group, the Podiatry Business Owners Club, at least half a dozen times leading up to it. And then after it came out, I then uploaded it to Vimeo, put a link into the Podiatry Business Owners Club. And so many people put a message there, oh, geez, how did I miss this?
Yeah.
You missed it because, like you said, Facebook can't show everything to everybody. So therefore, only a small percentage is seeing it. So you got to post more often, probably too.
Well, you can, but you just got to pay to play now, right? It's definitely, you put up the dollars in order to get the reach now.
So the first element is having a cracking website.
Yeah, website and Google My Business profile, because I think this kind of leads into the second foundation, which is search.
Yeah.
Whether people are searching for you and your clinic, or they're searching for podiatrists near me or podiatrists in your local area, search is really the new mechanism of discovery. People don't have the golden pages or the yellow pages anymore. When people, it's embarrassing the amount of, probably deeply personal questions people ask Google these days, along with, podiatrist near me, like, how do I treat my ingrown toenail? They're asking all of these questions. And so both kind of the paid and organic forms of search are, that's going to lead to a lot of potential new patients for practices.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the yellow pages. As we transitioned out of that, I saw a lot of practices as there, because it used to be, you get in the yellow pages. If you weren't in the yellow pages, you did not exist. They were like, had you by the throat. You had to be in there. And as the years went on and your business became more successful, your ad would get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was like competition. Whoever had the bigger ad got position. But then as things started to turn and twist or change and everything started to go more online, our ads got smaller and smaller, all the way down to next to nothing. But you see some of the podiatrists that didn't have successful businesses, who didn't understand marketing, their ads were getting bigger as the other people were getting smaller. And I did a test one day. I was at a conference and I said, go and grab the yellow pages for me. And we opened up, said, go to lawyers. And they went, why? I said, just go to lawyers. I said, because they are so stuck in just tradition.
Mm-hmm.
We went there and all of a sudden, all these like really big law firms at the time all had these big full page ads still in the yellow pages. But all these new guys coming through had next to nothing there. But you went to the online presence, did the search, and all these little guys that had just one line in the yellow pages, they were the ones you found online. And the bigger companies were further down, or they were paying for ads just to be found.
No, that's funny. I think one important component that people need to realize, along with people searching all topics, is that both with the kind of the organic and with the paid, it's basically Google's only going to return results that people really want. You have Google Analytics probably installed on your website. So Google actually knows how long people stay on a website when they click through an ad or organic result. So the goal is to really have the best page about whatever it is. Maybe it's about being the Sydney, Australia podiatrist or the Sydney, Australia running doctor. But you need to have the best page that's going to kind of win the internet. So people will stay on that page. Maybe there's an engaging video as well. But this intent, especially with this Google search ads, the fact that people want to get a podiatrist and your ad can show up makes it a little bit different than other forms of advertising. It's not an interruption. It's something that people are actively looking for. And so that makes it a little bit of a difference there. And that's why I separate Google search ads from different other types of online advertising.
What's your thought on this? Just a side question.
Sure.
When you're on somebody's website, and I don't think I've ever seen it on a podiatry one, but you'll be on other websites and you're only on there for like 15, 30 seconds, bang, and this ad thing pops up. And
Yeah, the pop-ups
it
to me
annoys me.
like ruin the experience. You're going to hear people talk about how people do connect with them or do give their email opt-ins and stuff. But to me, like especially when it's healthcare and you're really thinking about something from the patient's point of view, because I think
Yeah.
anything you do in marketing not only has to benefit your practice, but has to benefit your patient as well. And I feel there's a misalignment there, and I would never recommend. If someone does it, that's up to them. But maybe it's my medical training or what it is, but I find them to be annoying, so I don't want to have someone else deal with them.
Yeah. And usually I'll see that on different marketing websites where you'll be
Yeah.
searching, like reading the article, it'll pop up. At one pop up, I can go fine, I can just hit X and it's gone. But when it pops up again in the next 30 seconds and then it does it again, I leave because I'm frustrated.
Yeah, for sure.
So what you're saying, you need to have pages set up. So when people get to that page, it's pretty much answering the question that they're looking for.
Sure.
And therefore
Exactly.
they're going to stay on there. They're going to read it more. Google will go, oh, that must be a good page because the person has stayed on there for a couple of minutes and has read the whole article.
For sure.
So what's the next element?
The next element is basically reputation. And this is basically information about you and your clinic not only lives on your website and your Google My Business, but it's out on other places in the internet. And you really have to take an active approach to make sure that you know what's being said about you on these different places. So probably the biggest kind of place that's within the Google universe is Google reviews. So
Yeah.
finding a way to be comfortable for asking for Google reviews from patients and knowing that those Google reviews are basically like a digital form of word of mouth. It gives you basically a platform for your patients to promote you in a way that's totally genuine. And if they don't want to, they don't have to. But their words speak so much more loudly than anything you can say about yourself on your website. So, kind of helping build your reputation. So I usually recommend, like I said, Google reviews. If you do have, you want to do it on Health Grades or some other websites, those things are okay as well. But the benefit of getting a lot of Google reviews is that if someone looks at your clinic and you have 150, you're a 4.8 out of 5, 150 reviews versus someone that has 6 and they're 5.0, like which one do you think they're going to choose?
Yeah.
So it's another way to make yourself higher up in the rankings, but also just, show your local patients that, you are reputable and people are talking about you.
Yeah. One of the companies that has sponsored a lot of these episodes on this show, Podium. And
Okay.
that's their platform. It's all about they've got a way of helping you get Google reviews. And I know a few podiatrists who are working with them, and I've said, does it work? And they went, oh, definitely. So if people want more Google reviews, I usually say go to podium.com/podiatry legends. They've got a page set up there, and fill in a few details, watch your video, and then you can ask them questions afterwards. But I do think Google reviews, people are so used to doing it now. You'll go to a
Yeah.
restaurant and you're tossing up between two restaurants. And if there's a restaurant that's got one review that's 5 stars, you got another restaurant that's got 400.
Yeah.
And they might say 4.6 or 4.8. You go, oh yeah, okay, that's great. I had a hamburger the other day, which is unusual for me, and it was awful. I had this awful hamburger, but it was at a place where I usually get really, really good hamburgers. And I ate it, and my wife had hers, and we were so disappointed. And I went, yeah, if this is the first time I ever went to their restaurant, I said, I'll be giving 1-star review and be telling people not to eat there. I said, but because their food is so good, I just went, this is so unusual. So I actually, because they had a good reputation and I knew that I'd written a 5-star review earlier on, I actually sent a message directly to the head office of this franchise. And they phoned me up that same day, got
Oh,
back in
wow.
touch with me, wanted to know the details. I explained the details. They then contacted the store, passed the information on to them, and now I can get a free burger there. But I said to them, I probably won't take up the offer of the free burger. I said, I just wanted to let you know because I've enjoyed the burgers in the past,
Right.
and I don't want the business to disappear because I enjoy the burgers.
No, exactly. I
And I
think
think
sometimes people get
sometimes,
afraid about negative reviews.
yeah, and I think when somebody does contact your business and there is a complaint, take it as an opportunity to learn and to grow. And even if you get a 1-star review of somebody, don't just leave it there. Go and get a whole pile of 5-star reviews to make it better, but contact that person and try and find out why.
No, exactly. You want to make sure you respond to all reviews, and obviously the ones that are, 1 or 2 star. You want to know what's happening because that gives you an opportunity to improve your patient experience, improve, nobody's perfect. So if someone has, only 5 stars, my nose is always a bit like, all 5 stars, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the astroturfing, fake reviews could be a consideration, but they're an opportunity, like you talked about, to kind of flip the script and just kind of make some improvements and kind of identify your processes that might be improved.
Yeah. The guys from Podium, they said the idea with your reviews is to just get a constant. It's not that you want to see 50 reviews on one day. That just does not, that looks really, really sus, especially when they've all got a name, their surnames you can't pronounce because they've all come from a different country.
Yeah.
But they said you just want to see this consistent flow of reviews. 5 stars, there might be a 3-star, but then there'll be,
Mhm.
10 more 5 stars over the next 2 months. And then you might get a 4-star. And they said a believable rating between, I think they said 4.6 to 4.8
Yep.
is almost like a sweet spot. If you're 5 consistently, some people just go, okay, that's their mum, their dad, their cousin, their brother. And
Exactly.
people listening to this are going, yeah, my mum has reviewed my site.
It's okay. If your mom's your only one and your brother's the other one, then you're in trouble. But if you've got, 30 reviews and 2 of them are family members, I think you'll get by on that one.
Yeah, especially if there's only 2 there and they've got the same surname as you and they went on the same day.
I've
So
seen
that,
that before.
yeah, so have I. So what's number 4?
Yeah. So number 4 is about communication. And, it seems like a lot of the push with online marketing, and sometimes, I'm sometimes guilty of it and putting it on my website, is that it's a push only for new patients and new things and new this, that, and the other. But really, you've got, if you've been around long enough and you've been, collecting emails and asking for permission to collect those emails and send your, if you have an email newsletter,
Yeah.
your database of patients is really the kind of like, the untapped potential for educating your patients about all the procedures that you do and how you can help them and their loved ones and their network. So I'm a big proponent of like email educational newsletters that really are that provide value for the patients. So not just an appointment, make an appointment now type of newsletter. It's something that actually benefits kind of your practice and your patients.
Yeah, I have a framework when we did our newsletter, and I ended up setting up a framework of how it was to be laid out and what we need to have done by each time so it came out each month. But we
Sure.
had recipes in there, run reviews, and yeah, we had the odd podiatry article and we had a bit of news what was happening in the community. But most of the patients, when they came in, ever commented on the newsletter, always commented on the recipe and the run review. And I remember one lady coming in once saying, "Oh, I just got to let you know, I have to thank you. It was my husband's birthday. Didn't know what to get him. You did a rum review on Sailor Jerry's or whatever it was, and so I bought him a bottle of that. And he just said, "How did you know to buy this rum? This is fantastic." And yeah, so it's not all about podiatry with your newsletters.
Yeah, you do want to connect with people, right? Like communicating with them, giving them, helpful information and just humanizing you and your practice, that, you're a part of the community. I think sometimes, we go through, at least in the US, we go through kind of medical training. We're in hospitals. We feel like the doctor and stuff. And that's important. But I think there's also a point, especially in private practice, where you're another business, health business, but a business in the community, and just helping with the community and kind of being a part of the community is a really important component of that. And communicating via email, newsletters, and other ways, just a way of connecting with those local patients in your area.
Now, do you have a preferred platform that you feel podiatrists should use for the newsletters?
Like, obviously we have all kinds of regulations in the US when it's HIPAA related. So if
Yeah,
you're trying to go more with diagnoses based, sometimes you will segment and try to like, do recall campaigns and things that have, maybe a little bit of personal medical information. You have to be kind of careful with that stuff. But honestly, like if you're just kind of giving more of a general updates as far as maybe what's going on in the practice, a little bit of news, maybe a little community news, maybe a little bit of, maybe you have an article about plantar fasciitis back on your website, or springtime running routine after winter's over, and you link back to it. I don't think these emails need to be like crazy long. Maybe it's 3 sections. At this point in time, we talk about a little bit COVID-19 that we're open
Yeah.
and we're available to help. But yeah, like your standard MailChimp can work, Entrepreneur. There's some different HIPAA compliant ones that are coming out there that I haven't tested out yet. But as long as you're just providing kind of like a community newsletter, kind of any email newsletter platform will work.
Yeah, I use Campaign Monitor.
Okay.
And the only reason I ended up using that was Nikki Jerd, my friend. That was the one who put me onto that. And at
Sure.
the time when we were first using it, it was even with the free version, you didn't get Campaign Monitor or like MailChimp down the bottom of your email.
Right.
It's funny. I've received an email newsletter from some really, really big companies, and then down the bottom it'll say MailChimp. Okay, you type bastards. Okay, you can get a paid version where you can actually get MailChimp taken off, but
Well,
yeah.
Well, they're either really tight or they just don't know that like hidden setting that's like 8 or 9 button clicks back where you just like uncheck the box for that to remove the logo.
I think that's funny. So we've gone through 4. What is the fifth element?
Yeah, so the 5th is what I would call promotion. This is a form of advertising. Generally, I think doing these first 4 things is kind of the bread and butter as far as kind of for the online presence. But if you have, let's say you have a new type of procedure, a new type of way of treating a patient, or you're just not connecting maybe with a certain niche of patients. Let's say it's marathoners for some reason, and you've made pages on your website, but you're just not getting that organic traffic, or you're battling against someone that's a nearby competitor. Getting some awareness about the services you provide is legitimate, but you just shouldn't expect that that's going to necessarily convert into an immediate new patient or a returning patient. So, for example, with Facebook ads, one of the benefits there is, let's say we do, like, one of the big things now, at least in the US, is this swift way to like taking care of warts.
Yeah.
You can basically advertise that you have kind of a painless way to remove warts, or more effective way of removing warts. You have to be a little bit careful. I don't do a lot of Facebook ads because medical claims and things like that can probably get flagged pretty easily.
I did a Facebook ad just about, and I put, "Do you suffer from heel pain?" And Facebook booted my ad, and they said, "We can't. Yeah, that's discriminatory against people that have heel pain."
Yeah.
Seriously. So yeah.
So you got to be a little bit careful. There's some wiggle room there, but the second part of it though is, like you said, kind of if you're not getting in front of your ideal patient. So let's say I want to treat marathon runners, and like I'm based in Sydney, Australia. There's ways to see who likes Runner's World magazine, who likes the Sydney Marathon, who likes other kind of running clubs in that area that all have Facebook pages. So maybe it's people who like those things within a 10-kilometer radius of your clinic, and you can kind of provide them either a video describing how you treat marathoners, or you kind of with a photo of you treating your ideal patient. I used to volunteer a lot of marathon medical tents, for example, right? So if you have a picture of you, and maybe you have to get a write-off or permission from that runner or something, but it's a way to position yourself kind of as the expert, and then hopefully then people will see you as that, and they'll come into your clinic down the road.
Okay, so that 5th element, does that sort of tie in with podiatrists positioning themselves a particular way?
Yeah, like you brought up kind of previously here, it's like, you kind of get what you put out into the world, right? If you show people that you are the running sports medicine doctor, or you're the diabetic foot specialist, you need to have an online presence that, has photos of that, videos, content about that, and that's kind of your area of maybe your marketing niche or your marketing positioning. Like you said, Tyson, earlier, like, ingrown tunnel comes your way and you want to do it, great. It's not going to limit you. It's really going to actually just make you be seen as the local expert in whatever type of practice you want to have. So this kind of conscious, like, self-reflection as far as what do you like about your practice, what do you like about podiatry, will really help you kind of go, find that lane and find that position, to kind of market yourself in a niche where you can become that expert.
Okay, so if there's a podiatrist listening to this now and they want to reach out and contact you, what's the best way of doing it?
Yeah, so they can go to podiatrygrowth.com. I'm always there's lots of resources there that I have for free. I've got some suggestions about how to build a good podiatry website. Also, I have some free resources with Podiatry Growth /free. Or if people just have questions for me, they can email me, Jim@podiatrygrowth.
Okay. And they can reach out to you and I think you said you can do like a complimentary call with people if they just want to talk over things and just discuss how you may be able to help them.
Yeah, if they look on my website, there's something called like the strategy session. So, if someone wants to, is curious to know a little bit more in depth and would like kind of an overview of kind of what they're doing right and where they have room for improvement, kind of on their online presence. If they schedule that with me, I'm happy to kind of review their website, review rankings, review some stuff, and then, provide them like, a complimentary 30-minute call where we can kind of just go over what's working for them. And then they'll get a short report where they can, completely keep for themselves. If it turns out that it's a good fit, then, and they want to hire me, fantastic. But really to me, it's about educating podiatrists to make sure they don't have this blind spot when it comes to how to, effectively and ethically promote their practice and just kind of get some benefits for the practice and for the patients.
Yeah, because there seems to be a couple of different like podiatry groups where you'll have one group that are willing to just go and hand a couple of $1,000s to a digital company, and then they stay in the dark. And then you've got another group who go, oh, I don't think I need to do any digital advertising at all. Yeah, my reputation stands by, word of mouth. I'm going to build my practice by word of mouth. And some people do that very successfully in particular areas. So I'm not saying that does not work,
Right.
but you do need to market your business.
Well, for example, I was part of a big orthopedic surgical clinic when I was in practice, right? So all I had to do was kind of keep my head down and keep working hard. And I
Yeah.
had a lot of internal referrals. So someone's, obviously this is for the private practice that's maybe, a solo practitioner, 5 to 7 members, but they don't have that feeder. And that's also one of these things too, where maybe if you're just starting off out in practice, maybe you're going to get some more benefits from the more shoe leather, hitting the pavement kind of stuff before you have money. But once you have more, once you run out of time and you're treating patients and you still want to get that, patient flow into your practice, that's when it makes sense, I think, as far as considering online methods to do that.
Yeah. When I sold my practice 4.5 years ago, when I did have it, I always say to people, I've never done a digital ad on Google for my podiatry practice. And I was in a town that 150,000 people. I think there are only about 8 or 10 podiatrists here. But I put so much effort into my website and so much content that back in the old days, even going back 4.5 years ago, you do a search, and if there were 10 things that came up, we'd have 7 of them. And I remember my daughter, when she was little, when she was about 6, she said to me, Daddy, you always told me you should share. I went, yeah. She said, but when someone looks for a podiatrist, you're everywhere. You're not sharing with the other 8 podiatrists in town. I went, yeah, I know that. I said, but when we go to Disneyland? She went, yeah. I said, that's because I dominate that first page. And she went, oh, okay. Yeah, no, don't worry about it then. But
Well,
if I was starting a practice now and I was kicking things off, I would really be probably more focused in that particular area because things have changed.
no, they definitely have changed, but you bring up a very good point there. It is about how much real estate can you get on that first page of Google. If you're there in the ads, you're there in the organic, you're there on the map view. It just sets you apart from other practices. They see that if you're willing to like be that visible, you must be the right person to go. And take care of their foot and ankle problems.
Yeah, well, one of the podiatrists I know quite well now, who's part of the Podiatry Business Spartans group, and there's a blog article that I helped them write, and they had another article that they did. And anyway, I did a search for that article a month or so afterwards, and there was ads at the beginning, then had a list of a couple of podiatrists there, and they were at the top. And then there were only 4 blog articles there, and they had 2 out of the 4 articles. And I said to them, when you actually search through there, I said, yes, you've got the ads at the top, which is there was one ad at the top.
Mm-hmm.
I said, when it just listed the podiatrist, you were first. Then you were 2 out of the 4 articles, plus you had more Google reviews than everybody else. And then I said, the person's going to go, okay, I'm now going to look at the websites. Your website looked better and more engaged than the other website looked like he did it himself. I said, so they were just ticking all the boxes. And I said, this is why you're getting busier and busier.
Yeah, you're going to gain trust, right? You're going to gain the kind of potential patient's trust to kind of take that next step with you.
Yeah, definitely. So I can't believe the time's gone so fast. Do you have a final point, some wisdom that you want to share with the people listening before we wrap up?
Yeah. So I think all of us that kind of go into podiatry or go into medicine, we kind of have to put our heads down and work really hard to get there. And so there's a lot of motivation that has to come internally from us. But what works when we're going through podiatry school and through residency, this kind of determination where it's, us kind of pulling ourselves up by our own bootstraps and kind of like trying to be the rugged individual. What you'll find is that as you get older, I highly recommend that people just don't try to do it on their own anymore. You need to find people that that you trust, that are of like mind, whether it be in a mastermind group or just consulting with people or having a coach. You want to find someone that is kind of in your domain, that's an expert that you can learn from. Maybe it's you're just reading their blog, listening to their podcast. You're using something like Tyson's services for these kind of practice acceleration groups, like you're helping people really determine through these webinars and through your courses, these group courses you teach. I think it's really important that people engage with others, because I think especially during times like COVID-19, when maybe you have a solo practice by yourself, or you're that one podiatrist in a group of orthopedic surgeons, or
Yeah.
maybe you're the young podiatrist in a small group. Like, you need to find a group of people where you can openly talk about your professional life and how that affects your personal life, and just find ways to continue to learn, not just in your own head. You need to get things out into the open with other people and let them give you some feedback. And once you do that, I think you're going to progress at a much more accelerated level than you will ever by just kind of staying to yourself and kind of figuring it out all by yourself.
Yeah, I know podiatry can be very, very lonely. And one of the unexpected feedback I got when I started doing the 12-week podiatry business reboot groups
Yep.
was, at the end of it all, when you're talking about what did they like, what did they dislike, what did they like most, and what did they like least. And fortunately, no one's had anything least that they like, which is great. And they've all said the content and what you provided was so good, because it was very, you've done it. Yeah, I'd done it in my own practices, so then I was teaching it. But they said what they really enjoyed was the community of the other people that were in the group. And they said sometimes it can be so lonely being a solo practitioner, or even if you've got other podiatrists working for you. If you're the business owner, you've got 4 people working for you, sometimes it's still lonely as a business owner. So they love doing that. And then the ones that go from the 12-week reboot into the Podiatry Business Spartans membership group, I mean, they are so tight now, and they are all over the country and in the UK. But just I watch the communication. As soon as someone has a problem, bang, they all dive in and they all help as much as they can. So really, you can't do everything yourself. And the other thing you touched on, I thought was important, even when you're talking about, well, I mentioned earlier on, you're a podiatrist, you do this online marketing, so you know what you're doing. It's no different to other organizations. It's just, I think the more podiatry specific you can get with the people that are teaching you, the better.
No, I totally agree. Like, anytime you can have kind of a conduit to kind of that kind of specialty knowledge, it's very valuable. And it can really, like I said, accelerate the learning, but also just feeling like, someone understands you, like understands your problems, understands kind of what you're trying to achieve. And you can just have a lot more kind of walk down that path together instead of doing it alone.
Yeah. And I think it helps that, like you said, you've been in the trenches as a clinician, and then we're doing digital marketing. So you've applied it back to where you're working. You know that it works. And then you've now got clients. And as you've been working with the clients, you know what works for them. And once you're helping a few, it must get easier to help more people.
Well, it's exciting, right? Because like, you see the differences making in people's practices. They're seeing more kind of the work they love. They're excited to like get on that monthly call with you and talk about the successes they've had, and then plan out the next quarter, the next year. It brings me a lot of joy, because I think, to be honest, even when I decided to stop practicing, there was a part of me that felt like there are people that put a lot of time into me, whether it be professors or attendings in my residency, my coworkers in my clinic. And when I was kind of away from the podiatry side of things for a little while, there was a bit of guilt there, where you're like, I'm not really helping people anymore. I'm not helping the profession. But I think, as I've kind of merged these two careers into Podiatry Growth, what I found is like, I get to re-engage with all my colleagues, and I get to show them something they maybe don't understand, and help them learn some different ways to really help them improve their practice, but also provide great care for their patients. So for me, it's a very rewarding experience.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. When I teach another podiatrist, doesn't matter what it is, whatever I'm teaching them, when I see them apply that, and I see them with a big smile on their face telling me how it worked, I tell you, it is a fantastic feeling. And I always say, what they pay me, they end up making 10, 20, 50 times more than what they ever pay me.
No,
So
exactly.
it is very, very rewarding. So Jim, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast. It's now all official. You are a legend. And
thank you.
yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Tyson. I really enjoyed our chat.
So I've stopped the recording there, and now we're still on the video here. So if people are watching the video, thanks for tuning in and listening. I'm sure if you didn't learn anything from Jim, give yourself an uppercut. That's what I like to say. So I'm just going to stop the recording on here as well.